The rise of remote workers amid the pandemic leading to a Supreme Court showdown over which states get to tax workers' income. New Hampshire filing a complaint with the Supreme Court in October to stop Massachusetts from taxing residents working remotely. New Jersey, along with Connecticut, Hawaii, and Iowa, submitting briefs in support of New Hampshire's position on Tuesday. New Jersey arguing that it may credit $1.2 billion on income to New York through March of 2021 for remote workers in the Garden State. Joe, your reaction to this? I mean, if I'm staying home and I'm not crossing state lines, should I be paying those taxes?
Well, as the other Joe in his basement, I'm literally joining you from New Jersey right now in my basement from my home. And this is something that obviously we talked about a little bit last hour as far as you can do anything from anywhere at this point, right? As far as working. You don't need to go into an office to use the fax machine anymore, or because you need internet access, or because you need that conference room to meet with your coworkers because we have Zoom. There is no more fax machine, and internet speeds at home could be better than an office building. So all of that said, should I be taxed because I'm working from home and therefore I'm more productive from home because I don't have that lunch with coworkers and sometimes liquid lunch? Unfortunately, that was a thing in my 20s. But then also when you talk about all the distractions that go with work, right? And then the commuting time. Most important, that from when I used to commute into the city from New Jersey, even though I was only like 30 miles away, it was 90 minutes in and 90 minutes out. I get 15 hours back per week to work from home to be more productive for my company. So therefore, should I be penalized for that? I don't think so.
Scott, you know, when it comes to an athlete, for example, they play in all these different states and they have to file in those states and pay a share for the fact that they travel. I mean, you know, your thoughts here, because everything is changing with respect to the pandemic. And some people are probably not going to return back to work in the office. That could create severe budget problems for states that were, you know, that have been used to relying on certain amounts of people crossing those lines.
Liquid lunches and fax machines. Memory lane with Joe Concha.
Joe's getting into all this age stuff today. Really? Wow.
If this isn't Christmas Eve and celebratory jargon, I don't know what is. Jackie, you make the best point of, I think, so far, the talk here. The state and city budgets and the constraints they're already facing before the pandemic. And now the fact that workers are not going to come back to these urban areas, because I'm in Chicago, Illinois, love it some days, hated others, of course. They were talking about putting in this urban tax on people that drove in about a year and a half ago. That failed, but then they were going to come back with something else. A lot of these cities and states who are counting on people, counting on workers, counting on businesses to exist, as you mentioned, prior to the pandemic, are now going to be maybe up the creek a little bit with respect to their budgets and all the taxing they were looking forward to putting on people, because that, and now they're going to have to find other ways to find some of that revenue.
And let me add to this, there's another layer to it. We've been following so many stories of companies saying, okay, look, if you liked working remotely and it's working for you, you can do that. But, you know, if we move you into different parts of the country because people are doing that, they don't have to be in one state per se to work remotely. Well, we're going to reduce your salary as well. So that would have an impact on the kinds of taxes that you pay, Joe.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And look, U.S. Census just came out with a stunning report yesterday, maybe not so stunning if we live around here, as far as New York, and people are moving out in record numbers. The reason why, perhaps, is A, because crime is going through the roof and you're seeing shootings double, and obviously New York has the highest tax burden of any state in the country, so people are saying, I'm not safe here, and also I'm taxed out the wazoo, and traffic is horrible, like I just talked about, and the weather is So all those things are driving people out because they could work from anywhere in the country. So if I could go to Texas and do my New York job, and I'm getting no state income tax there, then why wouldn't I do that?
And Joe,
but as a result, though,
if you haven't left New York already, you know, we're looking up to Albany, and we're looking at Governor Cuomo dealing with all of these budget shortfalls as a result of the pandemic as well, talking about raising taxes even more. So the people who haven't left, the people who are still here, are going to get it again and even have more of an incentive to flee.
You literally had Bill de Blasio bragging earlier this week, the New York mayor, that he plans to redistribute wealth to fight structural racism. The problem is when the wealth leaves town, there is nothing left to redistribute, right? Redistribute is what I meant to say. And Andrew Cuomo doesn't seem to get that as well because the state may go bankrupt at this point. So it's a real problem. And then the peripheral aspect here in terms of impact is what happens with these restaurants that are already going, completely extinct in New York City. City, when they do come back post-COVID and not as many people are going to the offices, well, then not as many people going to happy hour, not as many people going to restaurants
Lunch,
afterwards.
yeah.
It's going to be a real problem for places like New York City and other urban areas, and everybody's working from home and not supporting the businesses after they're done with work.
Yeah, and Scott, last question to you. Are we underestimating the impact this is going to have on the overall economy? You know, the market with the Dow over 30,000 has been pretty positive about a recovery, but at the same time, I think there are aspects of this that investors may not have considered.
Maybe. I mean, Jackie, I like the fact that people are showing and moving, showing, I guess, their ways with their feet, you know, instead of just talking. I mean, as Joe mentioned, you know, the exodus is striking, and it's certainly happening, too, in Chicago. Now, unfortunately, for some of these people in the city here, they're just moving to the suburbs, so they're still stuck in the state, which I think is really where people should flee. It's not just the city of Chicago, it's the whole state, as people are probably doing in New York. So I think it's actually a good thing. I think it's actually more efficient and more structurally sound for the economy going forward if people do actually finally take action to what they've been talking about for many, many years and actually go to states that are going to be more favorable for them to do business in.
All right, gentlemen, great conversation. We're going to have you stick around with us for the remainder of the show. But meantime, coming up, big tech is